Hello friends, my name is Bhavik Narsana. I'm a partner with the law firm Khetan & Co. And I specialize in corporate M&A in private equity and foreign investments. Today I'm going to take you through the legal provisions that relate to M&A, private equity and foreign investments in insurance sector. Quick snapshot of the insurance industry. Premium as to GDP, there's an insurance penetration of about 3.69% in 2017, which is up from 2.71 in 2011. There's industries expected to go up to $280 billion as a market size. 59 insurance companies are there, out of which 24 are life insurance, 33 are non-life, and 2 are reinsurers. We're all aware of the opportunity. The Prime Minister has also sort of invited foreign investments, citing the opportunity that is available. So, what are these opportunities? There is education and awareness of insurance, technology and internet penetration, digitization, variety of insurance products that are available, government insurance schemes, young population, longer life expectancy, greater earnings and higher savings, insurable schemes, young population, average age is going to be 29 years, life expectancy is 74 years. So what are the non-life insurance sectors? They include health, motor, travel, cargo, equipment, mobile, accident, etc. Life insurance companies, there are 23 private, 1 state owned, and private company share is at 58% in 2019, and FDI is presently is 49%, and there are proposals that it can go up to 74% in the near future. What are the laws that are applicable, which I'm going to cover these laws in the same order. So Insurance Act, then there are other capital regulations, life and non-life issuance regulations which deal with issuance of securities, amalgamation regulations, registration, transfer related provisions, NDI, FEMA, NDI rules for foreign investments, PE guidelines, foreign investment rules, IOCC, which is Indian Owned and Controlled Guidelines, and listed company guidelines. To start with, Insurance Act, we have to look at the definition of what's an insurance company. Indian insurance company, it necessarily needs to be a company limited by shares under Companies Act with sole purpose of insurance in life, health, general or reinsurance business, in which foreign investment should not exceed 49%, and it should be Indian owned and controlled. Control is a very wide definition. In addition to just appointing majority directors, it also includes control on the management or policy decisions, including by virtue of shareholding, management, shareholders, or voters arrangement. Minimum paid up capital can be 100 crore, needs to be 100 crores for life, general and health, and 200 crores for reinsurance. What is the capital structure, voting rights, and beneficial ownership? Company has to have a single face value equity shares or such other forms as may be permitted, which I'll take you through in the next slide. Voting rights should be restricted only to equity shares. Paid up amount should be the same for all shares except where there is a call which is pending for a period of maximum period of 1 year. And voting rights should be strictly proportionate to the number of equity shares that are held by the person. Company is not permitted to transfer shares unless there's a beneficial ownership declaration that is provided, and IRDAI approval has been taken for 5% acquisition or 1% transfer. What shareholding is included when calculating shareholding of a person is direct shareholding, and any shareholding that a company in which he holds more than 10%, that company holds any shares, and that shares also will get included. Similarly, any private company in which he is a member, that private company's shareholding gets included. As a company in which such person is an MD or manager, then or he has a controlling interest, then that shareholding will also get included in his shareholding. A firm in which he is a partner, or if he jointly holds with somebody, then that shareholding will also get included in calculating his shareholding. Indian promoters, investors, and foreign investors, subject to FEMA, can subscribe to preference shares and subordinated debt. This is the other regulations which permit you to issue securities other than equity shares. You need IRDAI approval for that, and some other conditions that are applicable are that the security should be fully paid up in terms of seniority of claim. Preference shares get their dues before the equity shares, and debentures get their dues before preference shares and equity shares. There can't be any securities linked to such instruments. Maturity, there is a minimum maturity period of 10 years for life, general and reinsurance, and 7 years for health insurance. Early redemption can be done, but no incentives are there for early redemption. The rate of dividend and interest has to be fixed or floating, and it has to be linked to a benchmark rate. Preference share dividend should be out of distributable profits, and interest on dividend debentures can be charged to the P&L account. Solvency needs to be maintained, and if it is going to result in leading to a net loss or increase in net loss, then IRDA approval is required. And cancellation of dividend or interest should not impose any obligation on the insurer except for payment of dividend to the equity shareholders. What are the documents that you submit to get the approval for under these other capital regulations? Board plus shareholders approval for preference shares, board resolution for debentures, projected business plan and solvency position for 5 years, terms of instrument to be given to the IRDA, classification of instruments for available capital and solvency margin computation rationale, confirmation that no dividend or interest will be paid if solvency goes below the margin. There is no cumulative payment which is permitted, which means no profit, no pay. But interest can be paid later on if it's accumulated, provided that this interest is charged to the P&L account, solvency continues to remain, and IRDAI approval is required if it leads to a net loss or an increase in net loss. Compounding of interest is also permitted in accordance with the coupon rate of the subordinated debt. What are the conditions that IRDA may impose? It should be fully paid and unsecured. Foreign investors should be subject to FEMA and compliance with SEBI where applicable. Call and put option, there is no put option permitted, but call option was there with the company after 5 years. And IRDA approval is required for exercise of call option, and IRDA will of course consider solvency margins compliance for granting permission. Total quantum of instruments that can be issued is 25. It should not exceed 25% of the paid up capital and securities premium account, or 50% of the net worth of the insurer. No loans can be given by the insurer accepting security of such instruments. Insurer can invest in instruments of other insurance that is permitted. In terms of life issuance regulations, which means issuing of securities by life insurance companies and the requirements therein. So these regulations define promoter as the same term as Companies Act and SEBI. And IPO or further issue of shares, IRDA approval is required even before you go to SEBI. What are the options for raising funds? It could be a divestment by promoters or issuance of fresh equity, or both. Specific approval is also required under the transfer regulation separately where applicable. An IPO is possible after any time after this certificate of registration is obtained, subject, and there could be lock-in on the promoters, which is in addition to the SEBI requirements. And shares could be fully or partly paid up. Partly is to the extent of 1 year call option, as discussed earlier. And IRDA can consider the overall financial position, regulatory record, capital structure, and embedded value in case of a life insurance company. This embedded value is not applicable for non-life insurance companies. IRDA conditions which it could impose would be extent of dilution that the promoters and investors are permitted, what is the maximum subscription by a foreign shareholder, lock-in period irrespective of ICDR lock-in, disclosures that need to be made in the prospectus, articles modification, and no approval can be given if it is not compliant with the regulations. It doesn't remain an Indian owned and controlled company, and it's not in the policyholder's interest or not in the interest of insurance business in the country. The validity of the approval is 1 year, which is extendable by 1 more year, and the time period which IRDA takes to come back is as expeditiously as possible, so no specific time period is provided. Non-life is the same as non-life except that embedded value which we discussed. Amalgamation, again the Insurance Act contains certain provisions which relate to amalgamation of life and general insurance. The scheme should be in accordance with the Insurance Act. Scheme should set out that agreement for amalgamation. The notice of intention, this is interesting, that even before you make an application for an approval, 2 months before that you need to provide a notice to the IRDAI for getting an approval from the IRDAI. What is the supporting documents that you give in giving this notice is you need to give a draft agreement, which means you can't execute the agreement and then go to IRDAI. It has to be a draft agreement, a business balance sheet, actuarial reports, independent actuary report for on the transaction, and other reports on which the transaction is founded. Separately, even the authority has the ability to frame schemes and require companies to be amalgamated. Of course, you need to take consent of the other insurance company which is going to be amalgamated, and appeal is available under the Securities Appellate Tribunal by the aggrieved shareholder member. There are separate regulations which deal with amalgamation for life in general. I've tried to put it in one slide. So what are the common conditions where scheme will not be approved? Solvency margin, of course, is not going to be met, or it's lower than the margin minimum requirement. Scheme is not compliant with applicable law. It's not in the interest of policyholders or growth of the sector. As far as life insurance is concerned, it can only merge with another life insurance company, and notice of intention period here is provided in the regulations is 2 months, even before you make the application with documents, and notice needs to be provided to all policyholders if the IRDAI so requires. After such sort of intention, the IRDAI may give you a in principle approval, after which you need to keep the policy holders give inspection rights should be available of all relevant documents, and then you go ahead with obtaining all the other approvals from the court, NCLT, CCI, DIPP, SEBI, wherever applicable. After all approvals come, then IRDAI gives a final approval, and then thereafter there is a statement which needs to be published in the National Daily and one vernacular newspaper of the completion. In general insurance, the only difference is that the notice of intention is 1 month instead of 2 months, as in the life insurance. Registration regulations, again, some of the important definitions are foreign investors, Indian investors, and Indian promoter. It's very important that if it's an Indian promoter, then that company cannot be a subsidiary of another company. But other than that, it can be a banking company, a CIC, a PFI, a cooperative society, LLP, or any other person which is allowed by the IRDAI. And investors means anyone who's falling within the definition. So these definitions again are referred to in either foreign investment rules or transfer regulations. So we'll cover that later in the presentation. Now this is extremely important. How do you calculate foreign investors shareholding is provided in the registration regulations. So it provides that whatever is directly held by the applicant, and second is the proportion of equity by the foreign investor which is directly through a subsidiary in an Indian promoter or an Indian investor. So if there is any foreign investment in the Indian promoter level or in the Indian investor level, then that gets included in the proportionate basis to calculate foreign investment. However, this provision of proportionate calculation is not applicable when when the investment is in a banking company or a public financial institution, or when the Indian promoter or Indian investor of a listed company if it's a listed insurance company and the Indian promoter or investor is a regulated entity by SEBI, RBI, or National Housing Board. There is a timelines for reporting. Is 1% of change in capital of the promoter is quarterly reporting, and more than 5% in case of promoters is immediate reporting. Transfer regulations. So transfer of shares includes not only transfer but also transmission and fresh issuance of shares. So transfer regulations are applicable in all the three situations. Investor is a person who is otherwise eligible to invest in the equity shares of the insurance companies and includes a foreign investor. Prior RDA approval is required for any acquisition of more than 5% or transfer of more than 1%, and the ceiling of Indian investors, not including foreign investors, is 10% individually and 25% in aggregate. In case of listed companies, if there is a transfer or acquisition between 1 and 5%, then the following conditions apply, which is that if there is an acquisition of between 1 to 5% of equity, then fit and proper declaration needs to be given to the company. And if there is a transfer between 1 to 5%, then you need to inform the company immediately on the transaction execution, and transferor is responsible for compliance of the conditions. And transfer of acquisition of more than 5%, then you need, of course, IRDAI approval is required. How do you calculate the shares that are to be transferred? in listed and unlisted companies. So that 1%, 5%, these are all on a financial year basis, so within one financial year. And for listed companies, this will only apply to promoters, so that one financial year concept will only apply to promoter group. And transfer includes any offer for sale by promoters, or whether or not. A pledge also is included in transfer, so all the provisions relating to transfer also applies to pledge. And if there is a non-compliance, then IRDA would impose suspension of voting rights and require the shareholder to dispose of any excess shares that he holds. And of course, any other action can also be taken by IRDA. On the foreign investment rules and India rules, as I discussed, primarily 49% is permitted, subject to, of course, IRDA verification, and Indian owned and controlled guidelines need to be complied. I'll deal with that later on in the slides. The next is extremely important provision or guidelines on private equity investments. And we understand how much capital insurance companies need, and private equity investors of late in the last few years have been a very good source for insurance companies to raise capital from. So IRDA has come out to bring uniformity amongst private equity investments. It clarifies that these are other regulations continue to apply. This is only in addition to any other regulations. It applies to all unlisted Indian insurance companies, and PE investors can invest either as a promoter investor or a promoter. This is extremely important, and they have defined a private equity fund to include AIF and or any fund which is specifically formed for investment in one or more persons, and foreign investments in such funds is of course governed by the DIPP. And a special purpose vehicle, which is, I'll explain the significance of SPV, that can either be a company or an LLP. So let's first deal with when PE is investing, private equity is investing as an investor, then it has to be as per the fund's strategy in the placement memo with its investor. That is important. A maximum investment of as an investor is 10% of the paid up equity capital, and 25% together with other Indian investors. Minimum public shareholding needs to be 50%, unless already less at the time of the guidelines than such shareholding. And fit and proper criteria needs to be given, and undertaking needs to be given by the private equity that will not encumber or leverage the investment. If it's a one-time investment, then it should be disclosed upfront. Okay, let's deal with when a private equity investor wants to invest as a promoter, then it cannot invest directly. It needs to invest only through another SPV, which I said it could either be a company or an LLP. So what are the other important points that to be noted when a PE is looking to invest as a promoter? So first, there are about 17 points. I'll quickly take you through those. Only one insurance company promoter private equity can be, either life, general, health, or reinsurer. Scheme needs to be filed with SEBI, although this is not clear why, because these guidelines are applicable only to unlisted companies. Investment should be as per the strategy in the placement memo with its investor, which is similar to the investment as an investor. Investment should be only out of owned funds and not borrowed funds. Investment memorandum or charter documents of the investor should permit investment and future capital requirements of the insurance company. Fit and proper criteria needs to be met. Undertaking, again, that it is not encumber or leverages in investments. There is an interesting lock-in provision of 5 years. If you're investing as a promoter, then there is a lock-in of 5 years, and such a lock-in is also applicable at the SPV level, and all shareholders holding more than 10% are also required to be locked in at the SPV level. There's a minimum public shareholding, promoter shareholding of 50% requirement that is there at the time of guidelines. Then that needs to be complied with, and any new shareholder in the SPV with more than 25% also requires IRDA approval. So it's important to note that the provisions are not only applicable at the insurance company level, but even at the SPV company level, where the SPV is the promoter, and SPV is used as a medium to invest by the private equity guys. The Indian company has to be Indian owned and controlled, of course, and foreign investment rules need to be complied with. Any transfer of equity shares should be complying with the transfer regulations. If the chairman is not an independent director, then the CEO, managing director, or whole-time director should be a professional and not a promoter nominee, and minimum 1/3 directors need to be independent. The undertaking needs to be given by the private equity investor, the promoter, that they will subscribe to the rights issue to ensure that the company is not cash strapped. And undertaking, they should also provide any divestment plans, and preferably the divestment plan should be through the IPO. What are the Indian owned and controlled guidelines? Um, okay, applicability applies to all new companies, whether companies looking or not looking to increase foreign stake. What is control? Control, as I said, is extremely widely defined, and there's a lot of discretion available to IRDAI to understand what control is. And these guidelines are important to understand because your shareholders agreement that you enter into, it goes through thorough scrutiny by the IRDAI. You submit drafts to IRDAI. IRDAI comes back with comments on that. So these it's important to understand these guidelines, to sort of be able to draft a good shareholders agreement upfront. So what are the specific rules on control? Majority directors should be with Indian promoters and investors. KMP, key managerial persons, CEO, managing director, principal officer, should be through board or by an Indian promoter investor. CEO can be nominated by a foreign investor but should be approved by the board. If the chairman has a casting vote, then the chairman needs to be appointed by the Indians. Quorum, majority Indian directors are required to form a quorum. You can have a provision that a foreign investor presence is required, but you can't. With that, majority Indian directors have to be required for quorum. Compliance should be certified by the CEO and COO with the board resolution and a copy of joint venture and shareholders agreement. So that's something that is monitored very strictly. Let's go to the next listed company guidelines. So what are these are guidelines which are in addition to the life and non-life issuance regulations which we dealt with earlier, and these are not like replacing them. So who does it apply to? It applies to all insurance companies which have listed or which are in the process of listing. The aggregate holding is holding plus acquisition of a person, relative, associate enterprise, and PAC. So this is a calculation of shareholding. How do you calculate? And major shareholding is anyone holding more than 5%. This is an important concept which will be relevant for the following points, the other points which come next. Where there is a transfer or an agreement to transfer, then it has to be subject to lock-in as per IRDAI. Where there's a transfer between 1% and 5%, then self certification of fit and proper person is required to be given by the acquirer, and there's a deemed IRDAI approval over there. But if it is going to exceed 5%, then you need IRDAI approval, and you need to apply to the IRDAI with the draft agreement. And IRDAI will of course diligence on the fit and proper perspective. Further acquisition, if a major shareholder is there who holds 5% already, if he's going up to 10%, then there is no IRDAI approval that is required, but you need to disclose the source of funds to the company, and the company will disclose it in its quarterly shareholding pattern. And if the major shareholder is going to go more than 10%, then you have need IRDAI approval. Company's responsibility that it is company's responsible to ensure that all major shareholders comply with the fit and proper criteria requirement. They should obtain annual declaration and deliberate it in the board meeting and certify to the IRDAI report if it is not. Controlling interest, even if less than 5%, if proposed, then company should refer to anyone who having a controlling interest with even less than 5% is required to be reported by the company to the IRDAI. If it is not listed or not proposed to be listed, then you need to comply with the transfer regulations. What are the shareholders and shareholding and voting rights? Promoters of course need to have minimum 50%. Non-promoters such as legal, natural persons, non-financial, financial, they have defined. So basically non-promoters are classified in various ways, which is either a legal person, non-natural person, non-financial, or a financial person, diversified or a non-diversified financial. So if it's individuals or non-financial entities, then a maximum of 10% is permissible in a listed company. Financial sector entities are allowed to go up to 15%. Listed, well-regulated, diversified financial sector, PSU or government, can go up to 50% for both promoter and non-promoters. Financial institutions owned 50% by more by the individual. If a financial institution is owned by more than 50% by individuals, then there is a deemed that they deemed to be individuals, and the limit will be 10%. Promoter includes a foreign investor as well, and if there is more than 10% shareholding, then should be subject to lock-in, as provided over above. And any foreign holdings and other requirements, they should be demat shares only, and insurance companies can invest in other listed companies subject to, of course, the investment regulations. And subsidiary of a company can invest in a listed insurance company, which is generally otherwise not permitted. And a company should put a system in place to ensure that the calculation of the foreign investments and manner of calculation of shareholding as per regulation 11 of the registration regulations that dealt with earlier are complied with. So this was a very quick snapshot. I hope you find it useful, and thank you so much.